Hi everyone, this is Professor Benjamin, and we now have just finished week 3 of this course. So we are moving into week 4 of this course. This week we cover food and air. So last week we covered consumption and sustainability. This week we cover food and air. Please remember for the food, as I told you in the last week's roundup, that in order to answer the food questions properly, you're going to need to have watched the film Food Incorporated. And remember, that was on the syllabus from day 1 of the course, so you have 2 required films for the course. And I gave you that talk last week so that I was in hopes that many of you would acquire the film so you can watch it before this week. So you have food and air due. A lot of you did a good job on your consumption answers. Same with sustainability answers. A lot of people left out on one with IKEA. You left out the social portions, why the social portions makes IKEA sustainable. So that was one area that I saw a little bit of struggle with. The rise of the peer-to-peer sharing economy. A lot of people left out the fact that the question asked about consumers' consciences. And what I meant by that and what a lot of people answered were 2 different things, was that will it stop people from consuming items? Okay. The other thing is that a lot of people under the consumption session failed to answer the linear system question properly, and I addressed that in last week's roundup as well. It actually has to do with the line, the word linear, meaning line. There's only an input and an output, and that output is never put back into the input again. And the way that that would be a wonderful situation is if all those items that we throw away in the trash somehow could be recycled or made into new items. That way we're not just wasting those resources. So if you have questions, make sure you go back and listen to last week's roundup. The other thing was leisure consumption and connectiveness. A lot of people answered that question properly. Yes, we are defined by the items we own. The story of stuff, collaborates that answer because it says that, the thing that defines us most is that golden arrow. So I wanted to just quickly address what this week is. Yes, you have food and air due. You have 2 initial posts due by Tuesday, response posts due by Friday, quizzes due by next Sunday, which is October 29th. So you have your initial posts due by Tuesday this week, 1 for food, 1 for air. Response posts by Thursday, 1 for food, 1 for air. And then you have 2 quizzes due by next Sunday, October 29th, 1 for food, 1 for air. Please remember that the quizzes have to do with the chapters in the textbook. So the quizzes really have nothing to do with the additional articles that you read. They actually have to do with the textbook chapter. The one thing I want to address in this video is the fact that next week we have our midterm. So you will have climate change due, so you'll have a climate change initial post, response post, and a climate change quiz, but you'll also have your midterm due. We're only going to be covering 1 session from this point forward after this week. So that's fantastic news. So after we cover food and air, from this point forward in the semester, you only have 1 session due each week. So what'll happen with the midterm, and I want to show you, I put up a midterm review, and you'll see that midterm review if you scroll here under the food session right here. You'll see the review for the midterm, and I'm going to go through that really quick with you. You get 1 chance between October 29th at 11:59 and November 5th at 11:59. You're given 2.5 to 3 hours to take the midterm. I think I'm going to bump it to 3 hours. So you get 3 hours to take the midterm. You can only take the midterm, for the midterm, you only get 1 chance to take it. So you have to sit down and be willing to put the 2.5 hours to 3 hours in when you sit down. Okay, to start the midterm. So you can't go into the midterm and say, oh, I'm going to now throw a load of laundry in. No, you have to, or I'm going to go down to the laundromat and put laundry in. You have to make sure that when you start the test, you finish it. Okay, it is all essay questions. So here's what a lot of students do. Oh, I know all this. I can just take the midterm. when it pops up. No, that's not going to happen. The midterm is actually in the preparation before the midterm exam. So writing out the answers before the midterm exam using the midterm review sheet, and then the midterm exam is really only copying and pasting those answers into the portal. Again, if you do not do that, prepare before the midterm and write out all the answers, you will not complete the midterm in the time given. And every semester the same thing happens. Students email me, this is not fair, when in reality I've given you all the questions that are on the midterm before the midterm exam. So I pretty much, on this midterm exam review sheet, all of the questions that will be on the midterm are on the exam review sheet. No funny business or anything. All of the questions, and I'm not like fibbing or anything, all of the questions that are on the midterm exam review sheet are on the midterm. So you need to write out the answers beforehand in a Word document, use the midterm review sheet, save it, say, with answers, type out all the answers, and then copy and paste them into the portal. That's it. The midterm exam should really just be the copying and pasting portion. So let me show you the review for the midterm exam. Again, the review for the midterm exam is found under the food session. So you'll see at the end of the food session, right here, food, and it requires you've watched the film Food Incorporated. Remember, if this comes up, you just click here and it takes you to the article. So let me just go back. Oh, I'll just go here. It's just easier. So if you look here under the food, oops, it requires that you have watched the film Food Incorporated. And at the end of this module is here. Review for the midterm. So when I click on that, review for the midterm, it opens up the document. I'm going to open it in Word just because I like the way Word looks. It's just easier for me. And here is the midterm exam review sheet. Your midterm can be found in a separate module titled which can be found under the AIR session. This session will cover the introduction, tragedy of the commons, consumption, sustainability, ethics, and policy in food. So AIR will not be on the midterm. It'll be on the final exam. You'll be given 2.5 hours. I might bump that to 3, so the review sheet says 2.5 hours. If I give you an extra half hour, that will be good news, okay? You need to make sure that you're using Google Chrome or Firefox. If you're using Internet Explorer, it's not going to work. So make sure you have a reliable internet connection and you're ready to go. If you open too many tabs at the top, so for example, if you are in here and you start opening tabs up at the top, you get into a really weird spot in Canvas. A lot of times it freezes, and I can't help you if Canvas freezes. So make sure that you have a reliable internet connection so that you can answer that properly, so that your quiz doesn't freeze. If your exam freezes, I cannot reopen. You'll have one between 10 and 20 questions on your midterm. I think it's around 15 questions. So this means not all the questions below will appear on the midterm, but you must prepare for all. If you prepare for all, you will need to do your midterm is copy and paste into Canvas and edit your questions. The answers to each question should be at least one full paragraph. Four sentences, so one paragraph each for the answers. Now, if the answer has sub-questions, so for example, let's say 3 of these questions are together on one question, then the entire answer needs to be a paragraph. Not what is a commons needs to be a paragraph, the main goal needs to be a paragraph. No, just one paragraph answer for everything together. Okay, so the subparts are considered part of the full paragraph. All right, and how I have this, and you also need to cite. And when I say cite, I don't want you to get MLA formal citing or web links, etc. You just say introduction chapter, page 51. So you're just telling me where you got the information from, because a lot of students copy information from outside sources. It's not correct because some of these terminologies have different meanings when they're applied to the world outside of environmental conservation. For example, prehistoric preservation. Preservation is not the preserving of artifacts or historic buildings. In terms of this class, preservation means hands off, that we don't touch nature. We just keep it in its pure beauty. You see how the two definitions are different? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a student who tells me that preservation means the protection of historic buildings. And that's because they use the internet to look up what preservation means instead of with the resources that I have given you. Okay, so just at the bottom of each answer, just say, consumption article, consumption, evidence from the United States. Okay, so that I know where you're getting your information from. Not full citations, just partial citations. How I have this broken up is this is what is the questions that I'm going to ask from each session, so each module. So for example, session 1, the main reasons for uncertainty and understanding our environment, and how does the scientific method help us remove this uncertainty. This is from your textbook, chapter 1, the introduction chapter. Negative and positive feedback loops and examples, this is again from your textbook, from the chapter 1 in your textbook. Then we move to session 2. A lot of these answers right here all come from the Garrett Hardin article, Tragedy of the Commons. So you want to make sure you go back and read that article and develop these answers from that article. Okay? When are invasive species considered a tragedy of the commons? This is under that tragedy of the commons session. And remember, it's when people look for their short-term gain rather than their long-term interest. So they see a beautiful flower, they bring it into the United States, and it invades an entire or takes over an entire area and stifles out the native species that's there. Session 3, current views on the environment forum. This can be found under the ethics chapter. You can see here, environmental justice, cap and trade articles, cost benefit articles, preservation versus conservation. All of this is found under the ethics module. Consumption here, right, under the consumption module, story of stuff, the linear system question, which I just kind of gave you the answer for in the other session. Sustainability, the 3 major parts, the fair trade article, what are the issues with fair trade? It's because those big businesses now are trying to get into fair trade. And is it really then a fair trade situation if, a major corporation owns those, cocoa plantations? Organic food is like this, where there's no clear set of rules for what the terminology means. So organic still sometimes is sprayed with pesticides. They're just organic pesticides. So a lot of people think, oh, it's organic food, there's no pesticides on it. Not true. They're just organic pesticides. So there's no clear set of rules. And then one of these questions from Food Incorporated will be on your exam. Just one of them. So you need to prepare for all 3, but one of them will be on there. Please note, this answer needs to be at least 200 words. And you need to prove that you watched the film. So make sure you throw a lot of stuff from the film in there so I know you've watched the film. Okay? So just one of these questions will pop up on the midterm, not all 3. Okay? So if you prepare before the exam and type out all these answers before the exam, then when the exam comes, you just copy and paste these answers into the Word document. Into the exam portal. Okay? So the real preparation for the midterm is open book before the midterm exam begins. And then when the midterm exam begins, you just copy and paste in. One added bonus is the fact that we're only covering one session next week, which is not this week coming up, the November 5th week. We're only covering climate change. So that's good news. That'll be, less work for you to do, and then you can prepare for the midterm exam. Okay? If you have questions, feel free to reach out. This week, of course, I'm looking forward to your food and your air posts. Both of those are due Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Okay, the dates will never change in the class, so make sure you just keep that as a running rotation in your in your phone or in your planner. Okay, have a wonderful week. I hope you're enjoying the fall weather now, and I look forward to reading your posts about food and air this week.